In the meantime, please say good morning and welcome back to KHOW from Fox. At the time, she was working for Fox, is still with Fox, when the Ramsey story broke. And, of course, as we now know, the grand jury voted in 99 to indict the parents of then 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey on charges of child abuse resulting in death. But Alex Hunter refused to sign. Ladies and gentlemen, the talented Julie Hayden. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Peter.
How did you react when you saw, or maybe you're one of the people that I didn't know this, and maybe you were one of the people that did know it.
Yeah, I did know this.
Yeah.
And well, I have to give credit where credit's due. I only knew this because Charlie Brennan told me about it.
Okay.
He had approached Fox TV, Fox 31 News, about doing this story, and I think what happened is he got the job at the camera in the meantime, and we were sort of sworn to secrecy, part of the negotiations. But I can tell you my initial reaction when Charlie told me was I was stunned. And I guess I felt, even as a reporter, and not just a person, but misled by Alex Hunter. All along, Alex Hunter and in his office, not Stan Garnett, but the Boulder DA's office, let us all think that the grand jury decided there just wasn't enough evidence.
Well, even in 2000, two of the Ramsey defense attorneys said that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. They lied.
And they
lied.
exactly right, Peter. And they allowed the Ramseys to keep using that and to keep throwing it out there. The grand jury didn't find enough evidence. The grand jury didn't find enough evidence. And Alex Hunter knew all along that the grand jury did have enough evidence, and that he was the one who made the decision.
I want to let that sink into people. The Ramseys went around the world up until Patsy's death, and then John goes on alone. He does this book, From Something to Grace. It's another one of those Christian books. And, of course, with using Mary Keenan Lacey who exonerates them. And they travel the world and are exonerated for the killing of their daughter. They use the grand jury story. Two of their defense lawyers come out in the year 2000 and say, well, the grand jury didn't find them guilty. And they used all of that.
And they used it, I'm sure, in threatening letters to your bosses and in threatening letters
absolutely.
to my bosses. Every time we did a Ramsey story, we got threatening letters from them, threatening to sue us and throwing this out there. Now, granted, they may not have known. I
think John. I would be willing to bet my hide. John and Patsy Ramsey knew that vote was that close, or in fact that they were.
And I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Given, as you and I know, both all the bizarre dealings with the Boulder DA's office at that time. As you remember, everybody was friends with everybody.
That's right.
All the lawyers were friends, and anyway, I was stunned, and I kind of felt, I felt manipulated by Alex Hunter because we kind of fell into it too, and. I kind of felt this to a certain extent exonerated for a long time. I had felt that the family members were involved. At least that's what the evidence indicated, or at least were possibly involved. And it turns out, 12 other people who heard all of the facts that were known at the time felt the same thing.
I agree. Julie Hayden's with us 8 minutes after the hour. And I wondered, we were talking about this, I wonder how the new Mrs. Ramsey felt yesterday morning waking up next to John if they sleep together, or how Burke Ramsey feels, or how John's other children from his first marriage feel, or all of those fools and idiots who are out there who publish books, Christian books, by John, by John by himself, and then by John and Patsy, and the people, and even now, even in the Post this morning, they still can find some lone defense attorney who wants to defend the actions. It's very sad and very very sick, but we do know this much. And I told this story before. In Bill Owens' office, in the aftermath of that grand jury, Bill Owens had put together, and Bill Owens was a hero through this. He really did all the right things. He put together at his conference table, and there was CBI, FBI, and he asked, I forget how many people were there, how many of you think Patsy did it? Every hand went up. Every hand went up. And yet, Alex Hunter refuses to sign the indictment. Why do you think he refused?
I think from the beginning that there were too many close connections between the prosecutors involved in the case and some of the police department people and the Ramsey attorneys and the Ramsey family. And I think from the beginning, look at the way they treated the family from the beginning. they were not treated like suspects. They weren't separated.
Nope.
They weren't questioned.
Nope.
Nothing. And I think from the beginning there was, I think, this sort of assumption that they couldn't possibly have done it because, hey, they look like us, and they're in our social circles and things. And then on top of that, I do think there were obvious legal issues as things got more and more complicated. And I think that played part of a role, but I think that, I guess, who knows? I do know this, that there were several other prosecutors. Remember, they assembled the Dream Team.
That's right.
And it's my understanding that not all of the people that Alex Hunter was consulting with agreed with him, that many disagreed with him and would have prosecuted.
Is it true, although, no, Alex, I know, has some health issues, but for a while he traveled and was instructing other district's attorney on how to handle big media cases, and he made money at doing that. Did you recall that as well?
No, I don't remember that. I do know he's spoken about it.
Okay. I understand he was paid.
And I guess I don't know for a fact that he made money. But you're right. Never, at least to my knowledge, did he ever indicate that, even come close to indicating that the grand jury voted to, the grand jury handed down a true bill, and he's the one who made the decision not to follow it. And I guess, what makes me kind of mad, Peter, is how many stories have you and I worked on together where they haul 7-year-olds away in handcuffs, where they haul 88-year-old men away in handcuffs, and then they say, well, let the system work and the chips fall where they may. Do you know what I mean? And granted, those are different district attorney's offices, but in those cases, they aren't saying things like, oh, we don't have enough evidence to prosecute. They do have enough evidence to prosecute, and they say it's up to the jury. And I think that if Alex Hunter had had the courage to maybe go ahead and actually file those charges, then perhaps somebody who knew what was going on in that family might have said something that could have led to more evidence.
Yeah. There's one little strange sidebar that I was told that I believe is correct, that I don't know what it means or doesn't mean, but I'll leave it alone at this point. But by the way, I did want to bring up Paula Woodward. Did she approach you about a book she was writing?
She did.
Tell me about as much of that as you know, because I wonder what that does to her now, in terms of this.
I think I was not going to come across well in the book.
None of us were. I mean, Owens was,
I don't think I was going to play a particularly big part of it. And all I know is that she was writing the book. It was my understanding that she may have had a certain amount of information about this, but not very much. And that's total, how do I say it? Sort of like playing, phone tag, not phone tag, but, phone rumor. That's just rumor upon rumor upon rumor. But as far as I know, I don't think there's any actual date set or anything like that for publications. And I would think, as we all know, Paula was a big supporter of the Ramseys and of the intruder theory, and I would think this might throw a little bit of a kink in that.
More than one. This is my knowledge. Bill Owens called me about a year ago and said that he knew that Paula was writing a book, and like you, Owens was not going to come across favorably in the book. And I figured I had no chance in hell in that book. I mean, we did songs about her and we made fun of her, and she never contacted me. And Owen said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Let her write." I mean, that's the whole wonderfulness of the First Amendment. But I said, when she does her interview with you, turn on a tape recorder and record everything that you say to her and she says to you. And then, watch carefully, because she's probably, as you know, she has a close relationship, or did, with Hal Haddon, who was the original lawyer for the Ramseys, who at least helped them move on. I believe Hal defended her ex-husband, who was an SNL guy. And so there's a lot of, and I do believe this. I believe that she was very much involved in that John Mark Carr story with Michael Tracy and Mary Keenan, because they broke that story. And the only way only way Nine could have had it is if she was on the inside. She's been on the inside playing that game for a long and dangerous time. And so comes the book. And I was hoping and praying that they were about all the way to publishing, and then this drops, and they have to eat all that money. But we won't. And
that indeed, I don't know about that, but I do know that Charlie, has had this story for a while, and is working on it as a freelancer. So it's very possible she might have gotten wind of this coming out, and that could have delayed what was going to happen. Because I think this was, I mean, to me, I was shocked. Besides the fact that that Hunter didn't prosecute, I was surprised that it was kept secret for so many years.
Yeah, I was too.
To me, this was kind of big. But I do know, I mean, a lot of the people involved, I know people I tried to talk to yesterday said, hey, it's grand jury secrecy, and I'm not going to violate that. So,
well, you remember, I mean, they're called runaway juries for a reason, and that jury ran away from Alex Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
But we know about the Rocky Flats grand jury. In fact, I was going to call Patricia Calhoun to talk about it.
Right.
That grand jury ran away, too.
Right, and they went public with things, exactly, and they didn't do anything to him. And I don't think, the Daily Camera, Charlie Brennan know what they're doing, and I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely.
No, first of all, they didn't violate any grand jury secrecy, and I don't see that being an issue here. Because, well, I don't know. I think so much time has passed, but I just don't.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things Craig Silverman pointed out yesterday that in this child abuse resulting in death, that there's a 3-year statute on this. Although I'm a fan of Stan Garnett's. I mean, Garnett, I think he might want his department or his office cleaned up, because clearly between Hunter and Mary Keenan, you couldn't have done a worse job.
No, and he did this. Remember when he first took office, he did a smart thing. He handed it back over to the Boulder Police Department.
Exactly.
And he said, I remember he said to me, he said, Julie, you're a suspect. Until they make an arrest, we don't know who did it.
No, exactly. And here's the point of this, is that if in fact, and there's, right now the Boulder Police Department itself looks bad once again with Big Boy the Elk, but there's a chance for a lot of people to redeem themselves. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I believe it will. So again, all those years, and I mean, some of that time, I was talking about this last night. We had our family get together, and everybody's talking. We try and do it once a week. And I said, I saved the political cartoons that were written about me in the so-called Ramsey Mountain News when John Mark Carr was discovered. And I remember the things that were said in the aftermath of John Mark Carr. And we know that he was totally, he was groomed by Michael Tracy.
But, I mean, anybody knew. Everybody knew except Mary Keenan didn't do anything. But anyway.
She knew. I mean, she knew. Michael Tracy knew what he was doing. He keeps his job. Like I said, he couldn't carry Ward Churchill's jock out on the field when it comes to being. But anyhow, I'm going to go to Joanne. Joanne,
hi. Good morning.
Good morning to you, ma'am.
I'm a former Kramerite who worked with John.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Has anyone considered the fact of a chimera? DNA, dual DNA in one human being. So some male in that household could be holding two distinctly different DNA.
All right, here it is. As the story goes, there's a bit of, and it's called cellular material, and remember, these underwear were manufactured in China, and as you know, they really weren't hers in the first place because they had dates on them, and they were her cousins, and she liked them, and as the story goes. So,
but they should still be able to match that if it's DNA.
Well, I mean, look, if the manufacturer of the underpants was in China, how many people do you think that have? I mean, it's once again, if you take what's called, and by the way, I think it could be easily taken care of. If Lady Justice wears a blindfold and holds scales, and I think what happened in that grand jury is that they loaded everything on one scale that said the Ramseys did it, and everything on the other side of the scale that said they didn't do it. That scale dropped like a 10,000-ton rock.
Oh, it did, in the wrong direction.
In the wrong direction. And so if you can have these Ramalama ding-dongs that are out there that material is a little tiny bit, a piece, a minuscule amount of something that can't be explained. But everything else, handwriting, everything else, the garrote, the flashlight, the fact that nobody went into that house, overwhelmingly says John and Patsy and John, who's on first, but those two people, and that's exactly what the grand jury said.
Yep.
And so the Ramalamas who are out there, who have found me again by listening, I guess, on the internet, have started up with their own, stupid little emails and attacks and things like that. The bottom line is, and I don't know why it isn't clear to these people, but it's the same thing that happened in a strange way when Bill Clinton gets caught lying about Monica Lewinsky.
Because he was good at it.
He was great at it. And nevertheless, he's caught. Nevertheless, the only one left standing now is John. And suppose you were that woman that married John Ramsey, and he'd been using that grand jury lie. His attorneys had been using that lie. He'd been on these Christian shows, writing Christian books, literally getting his derriere smooched by people in the Christian community. He marries this woman. She wakes up yesterday morning next to a guy who a grand jury wanted to indict for the murder of his daughter. How does she feel?
But she could also be drinking the same Kool-Aid the Obama supporters are drinking.
You know what? Yeah, I guess you could do that Ann Rule, stranger beside me thing, but
yeah.
I mean, you married this guy predicated on him telling you the grand jury cleared him.
Well, that was crazy to begin with.
No, it wasn't. It was done by his own attorneys used it. I mean, they all used it. That Mary Lacey, who should forever be in hell somewhere with Michael Tracy, closest, when Milton talked about, the circles of hell. That's the closest circle, is Iscariot sitting there. Michael Tracy should be on one side and Mary Lacey on the other side. And I think the guy shoveling coal ought to be Alex Hunter.
Completely.
But they did it, and they got away with it. But right now,
they know it.
The truth.
They've been very, very quiet, except for John since then.
Well, John's been writing this book, Something from Something to Grace, and all this kind of. And he appears on these Christian shows. I mean, it's beyond sad.
So Jimmy Swaggart still has a TV show. Well, it's the Kool-Aid, and they don't care.
In fairness to Jimmy, all he did was buy a hooker. I mean, he didn't kill his own kid.
No, but he was so sorry, and now his money's back up, and nobody seems to care.
No, but same as what's the other guy that I love so much? Peter Popoff.
Yeah.
I mean, and somebody told me that he does his shows in Mexico. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But Peter Popoff, dead bang caught. And it doesn't matter, but.
Well, and that's part of the problem is that it doesn't matter. And even the people on the grand jury still have to be shaking their heads saying, why didn't it matter?
Well, but they knew, and apparently, but what the sadness is that they allowed John in the life that Patsy had left to write those stupid books and to travel the country and appear on the Jesus shows and be lionized as total victims and having, just the worst person you can imagine, Mary Keenan. She's horrible as a district attorney. And then saddling up, and I believe this, I truly believe this, that when they worked on John Markar, and in fact, Michael Tracy groomed him on the internet, taught him things on the internet, I think that Paula Woodward was on the inside of that. So was Channel 9, that they knew the story was going to break. Paula was part of it. She'd always been a Ramsey supporter. In fact, hey, Sheik, why don't we find Paula the Brown-Nosed Reindeer or Paula the Brown-Nosed Reporter? But the point of it is, I think Channel 9 knew some things as well, and that they knew they were going to pull John Markar out of the hat, and they, of course, broke the story. It was their story.
Well, I also believe that Alex Hunter did not think that was a true jury of his peers.
Well, maybe.
Therefore, he became the only peer.
Well, but there's Tom Kobe. Remember Tom Kobe?
Yep.
All right. Why did Hunter lay down? Here's an email. The investigation should begin here now, Peter. Why did Hunter lay down? I appreciate your call. I'll tell you, everybody, Sheik, here's what I'm going to do. 7:30 on 630 KHW. Go back into the archives with Don Reggae and Peter Boyles and find Paula L. Reichman. All right, hang on. Want to take the break, and then we'll take the break for traffic, and we'll play it for you. And like I said, I don't know what this does to Paula's plans to do her book. But if you don't remember, Paula was quite the investigative reporter. I personally believe at this time she was totally on the inside with Michael Tracy, John Markar, and Mary Keenan. Another feather in the cap at Channel 9. 7:30, 7:23 before the hour on a region email, and then we'll play the Paula Woodward song. Really? Semen from China? Question, do you hear yourself? This is, again, one of those unsigned emails. It wasn't semen. I don't know where you people think that there was semen in her underwear. There was not semen. It was some cellular material. I guess you want to believe it that's fine. That's what people believe about the story, and that's great too. All right, as I said, I believe that this woman was on the inside in the John Markar case. I believe that she was, as a matter of fact, I'm almost positive she is or was writing a book about the Ramsey case. But at the time, Don Reggae, Peter Boyles, Media Horror Productions present Paula the Brown-Nosed Reporter.
There was Charlie and Philip and Lisa L. Reichman, Danny and Bertha and Sherry Keen Osborne. But can you recall the most shameless suck-up of all? All of the Ramsey's lapdog had a very big brown nose. After you watch her interview, you would even say it grows. All of the other journalists used to think she had some class. Now they just get embarrassed as she kisses Ramsey's ass. Late one foggy Christmas night, the young life met an end. Paula disregards the facts to suck up to her friend. Oh, how the public hates this as they shout out angrily. They treat the rich in Boulder not the same as you and me. Then one foggy New Year's Eve, Hal Haddon came to say, Paula, with your nose so brown, won't you come to Boulder town? Know how the Ramseys loved her, and they shouted out with glee. Thanks to the brown-nosed journalists, we'll be getting off scot-free. We'll be getting off scot-free.
And in fact, Don Reggae, Peter Boyle's Media Horror Productions presents the Paula Woodward song. You can have that. Go to KHOW and you can hunt around Media Horror, and all of those tunes are yours. But that kicks in. Good morning, sir. You're on the air.
Hello,
Yo,
Peter.
yo.
You know, it really blows my mind that the people in Boulder got more upset over this elk than they did for John Benet Ramsey.
Well,
You know, I see no memorial. I don't see a demonstration or nothing when she was murdered.
here's what's interesting. You know, in Boulder, they're raising money right now to build a
I read
memorial.
They got $3,000 already.
I was going to tell people that. I thought it was interesting as well. In Boulder, they are raising money for a statue, if you would, of Big Boy the elk.
Yep.
When my dealings with Boulder during the time I was really hated. No, I'm serious. I mean, we would go. I mean, the people. Remember, these were the sophisticated elite on that street.
Yep.
They would come out and they'd say scream the worst filthy things at us. I went there with Anne Louise Bardak, who wrote that great piece in Vanity Fair in 1990. You should have seen these people. It was unbelievable.
I wasn't aware of that, Peter.
Oh man, they would come out of their houses and spit and scream and they wanted to believe. I think that's why that book was so aptly named "Perfect Murder, Perfect Town."
Yep.
Because Boulder sees itself as a very perfect place.
It's 40 square miles surrounded by reality.
Well, I mean, but there were plenty of good people that wanted the truth to be out. But I am convinced much of it was about protecting their own image. I swear to God, I do believe
it was. It was. But I just wanted to make a mention of that, and I'm glad you're here, Peter.
Oh, you're kind. Thanks.